Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ethos Online. This is a place where we be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so, for many of us, we use the teachings of Jesus to guide us to become better and better human beings. Again, Jesus didn't call himself the Son of God, the Son of Man. The new way to be human, the way to be fully alive and present right here, right now. And so today, I want to first start by telling you thank you so much for joining us. No matter where you are, again, whether you're driving, on your couch, wherever, thank you for being a part of this. And secondly, if you want to join in supporting this, please go to www.ethos-church.org/donate. And there you can partner with us every single month and continue this process of sharing these concepts with people. And so please consider doing that. And as always, like it. You can just click below, click like, and like this video and share it with people if you found it helpful. So today, we continue on through the process of looking at this teaching on the Mount. Again, many people will call this the Sermon on the Mount. This was the most famous of the teachings of Jesus. And so again, if you are a Jewish person and you hear about this rabbi that goes up onto a mountain and begins sharing Torah, begins delving into the commands of the law, you will immediately think of Moses. And so again, over and over again, Jesus is compared to Moses. 40 days in the wilderness, 40 years in the wilderness, parting the seas, all of these different things. These are connections to Jesus. And these early writers are wanting you to make the connection. And so Jesus goes up onto the mount and he begins expanding on Torah, on the law. And so again, the law, for many of us, we grew up with this idea that the 10 Commandments are a bunch of rules and regulations to keep us down. Not quite. Yeah, the rules and regulations, they were there to help govern and sustain culture and society. It was a way to live in harmony with one another. That was the whole point. Not that if you break them, now God's going to be eternally angry with you and blah, blah, blah. These were rules to essentially help govern their culture. And when they understand it that way, this quote makes perfect sense. The Sermon on the Mount is actually a deeper critique in the heart of the law. It reclaims the beauty of living life in harmony. This is what life in harmony would look like. It looks like these sets of principles. Yeah, beautiful. And so we understand also that this is written, right? This is written after their temple's destroyed. Jesus, the gospel message is post 70 AD. So again, temple destroyed. They're asking, where are our people? How will we survive this? What's our hope? Is Judaism dead? And the answer is no. No, you and I become the temples. You and I become the living, breathing presence of God in this world. We don't need a temple anymore. We don't need Jerusalem. We become the temple. We become Jerusalem. And that's the beautiful message of Jesus. And so we understand, again, Jesus is the law 2.0, right? He's sharing this. So we went through all of those happy are if you do this and this and this. And so we've stepped into now some of these more like, adultery, and we'll talk about oaths and this and that. Today, we're going to talk about divorce. We'll talk about divorce. And so in Matthew 5:31 through 32, it reads like this. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give a certificate of divorce. And again, I know this sounds archaic. I know we don't do those things anymore exactly the way they are, but follow me along. Again, context is everything. So they will give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, again, notice that, it's been said this, but I say this. Again, any good rabbi always puts a twist, right? Always twists something, shares a deeper perspective on the law. I say that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Yeah, you can see how this could easily be taken and kind of flipped around and used in different cultures in some pretty interesting ways. And truth be told, it has. It really has. Divorce, growing up for me, I was in a tiny tribe of Christian fundamentalists. And like most Christian fundamentalists, divorce was a sin. When you said, I do, this was like forever. And so I remember the stigma attached to anyone that had gone through a divorce. It was interesting. People had labels. And so anyone divorcing outside of like sexual relations or whatever, affairs, they were considered sinners. And so I remember there was this guy. He was one of the we called him Sabbath school. You can call him Sunday, whatever. But they were one of the leaders of the youth group, and this person was such a nice guy. And his wife, they would work together. They were. I remember watching them on felt boards until they followed us all the way through our teen years, and we would go to parks and everything. Awesome people, but something happened in their relationship, and it caused them to basically break up and divorce. And so I watched as different leaders in the church, the way they responded, it wasn't awesome. The way they responded was actually pretty hurtful, not only to them, but to all of us watching. And so what happened is, you notice the wife stopped coming less and less. She showed up less and less. And the husband, all of his leadership positions started to get stripped away. He was no longer able to be an elder. He was no longer part of the board. They started stripping away all of his, all of the things that he'd worked hard to get, all of these different labels of like, I'm a good Christian. They started stripping it away. And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, he was no longer part of the leadership team for the youth. And so I start asking around and asked my parents, and the answer was always this: well, he got a divorce. And I remember the dude continued going to that church. He even started dating someone. I remember then when he started dating someone, oh man, he's committing adultery. He's bad. He's evil. And I'm thinking, the poor guy, like, he got a divorce. Is he really evil? Is he really bad? Is he really sinning? So you can see how this verse can easily, within different cultures today, be removed from its context and used as a bit of a missile. It can be used really combatively, and it can hurt people. And so today, I want to look at context, because context is everything. When you understand what Jesus is saying here, the whole thing pops. But when you remove it from its context and you start making it about modern day marriage and divorce and all it starts to lose its original perspective, its original meaning. And so here we go. Let's remember this, a couple things. First off, women were commodities. We talked about that last week, right? Women essentially had no rights. They had very few rights. Property, when they married someone, all of their property went to the man. And so it goes to say that when they divorce, the man would take the property. Yeah, so divorce is not something that a woman would take lightly. A woman has everything to lose. If a woman's not married, her social status drops. A man, it stays the same. He has nothing to lose. Do you see the problem here? And so what's happening here is really interesting. There's a saying that we talked about last week, food for the stomach, stomach for the food. Again, if I see something I want, I should take it. I want it. It looks good. It's mine. I'm going to take it. And so what was happening is these married men, they would see the newer model, right? They'd see the younger woman. They'd look at their present wife and they'd think, I want that one instead. And so what they were doing, and this was a very common activity, I hate to say activity, but this is what would take place. The man would say, I'm going to divorce my wife and I'm going to marry her. When he divorced his wife, he would give her a certificate. That was part of the law. But she would lose everything. And then this new woman he would take on, who knows how long he would stay with her until he wanted a newer version. And so again, listen to what Jesus is saying. It has been said, anyone who divorces his wife, mouse, wow, that's weird, bestiality here. Anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But, so Jesus goes even deeper. So again, remember, in the past, if you didn't get a certificate of divorce, you were assumed to be either like a whore or you just lacked value. So the certificate was kind of like a step in the right direction. That's good, but it was being abused. And so Jesus is going further now. He's saying, look, the certificate was great. It took away the label for some of these women, but these women have nothing. These women have nothing. They have no social status. Their belongings are all taken away. This is bad. Like, this is not helpful in our culture. If we want shalom, if we want nothing missing, nothing broken, if we want our community to live in harmony, this is not the way. It's still being abused. And so he says this, he continues, but I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her the victim of adultery. Do you see now he puts some teeth in it? If you divorce her, and it's not because she's not been faithful to you, if you divorce her for anything but that, you make her an adulteress, which in that culture would mean she would be stoned to death. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. So you have now just placed a label on her, and anyone that has connection with her or wants to marry her can't. So you have victimized someone. Yeah, you've actually become part of a victimizing system. You are taking advantage of her. Jesus puts teeth in the thing. And so now, essentially what he's saying is you have the responsibility now to take care of her. And now in the same way, if she has that social label, you do as well. Yeah. If she becomes an adulterer, then so do you. Do you see it? He's saying you now are kind of like put in play or put connected with her. You're trying to break the connection? No. You break up just because you want the newer model and you leave her with nothing. You take on the responsibility. Yeah, that's heavy. You can't just get away with victimizing people. And so the question, of course, is like, you sure you want the newer model? You sure you want to do this thing to this woman? The woman is a woman. She's a person. And you're about to hurt this person. You're about to hurt their economy, their place in culture, their place in community. You're about to strip them of that. And so in doing so, you will be stripping it from yourself as well. Are you sure you want to make this decision? Don't take it so lightly anymore. This decision hurts people. And so I love this quote. Treat people well on your way up, and they'll treat you well on your way down. Treat people like you want to be treated. I feel like Jesus has said that many times. Treat people well, because as you treat them well, it's like you just treated yourself well. Because in the end, we're all connected. That's the point of this message. We are all connected. This message had nothing to do with couples choosing to separate because they no longer love each other or whatever. That's not the point of this message. This was about property. It was about taking care of a marginalized group of people who continue to be victimized. That was the point, the perspective. That's how we live in harmony. We don't do that. And so the answer, again, for today, if you get a divorce, if you and your partner don't get along anymore, you've just completely grown apart, you've done the therapy and it's just not working, please know this message that Jesus is sharing is not telling you that you are now a sinner, you're evil. If you ever remarry, you're committing adultery. No. In our culture today, things have shifted. Like, people have rights. You get oftentimes in these court cases when people are splitting, they're deciding fairly who gets what. Their time with their kids, right? They're working out all of these things in a judicial way. And they're figuring out a way to find harmony and live together or live apart, right? As co-parents. That's what's going on today. That's not what was going on then. So please don't assume you can take that verse and try to use it for today when we consider divorce. It's a very different animal. You are not sinning when you choose to separate as a couple. You are sinning, however, when you decide, you know what, I'm going to take everything from him. I'm going to ruin this person. Now, when you do that, at the heart of that, that's bitterness and anger, that's malice. You are essentially victimizing someone. And that was what Jesus was going after. We don't want to create more victims. The world has plenty of them. We want to play the part of the people bringing healing, the people bringing in the marginalized and the victimized. We want to be the people who bring in freedom. We usher in a new reality, shalom. That's what we do. And so that's the point of this whole message about this concept of divorce. It's giving people back rights. It's causing some people who have been making these decisions, hurting people, to second guess it, to ask the deeper question and to realize I am the same as them. I am a human being just like them. Do I want to be treated the same way I'm treating them? That was the deeper picture. And I think anyone that's going through divorce right now, when you ask yourself that question of the person, when you remember that person is a human being that you fell in love with, might that alter the way you treat them in the separation? I think it might. And so if I were to rephrase the words of Jesus to a more modern perspective, I might say, respect each other in and out of love. Respect each other. Remember, you're both still human. So I thought about this for a while. How would I talk about an application, right? Because I know 41% of marriages end in divorce. We understand that today. But that means there's still quite a few people staying together. And so this message may not apply fully if I only talk about divorce. So I thought, if the deeper issue here is how we use our power, right? I don't use my power to marginalize, victimize. I thought this would be kind of a fun moment for me as a comic book nerd to talk about some of my favorite comic book heroes and how they use their power to bring peace, shalom, in the middle of conflict. So this will be kind of fun. Here we go. How do we do it? Number one, this is Xavier. And Xavier, and again, this is so comic book nerdy, but this is kind of fun. He had mind control. He was considered one of the most powerful mutants in the comic book world. Put on your funny hats. We're getting nerdy. But here's what I love about this. Here's what he said once, Professor X, Professor Xavier. He said this: he was the student whom I taught the least, yet who taught me the most. Be teachable. Be teachable. In the moments of conflict, when things are going awry, use your power to allow yourself, first and foremost, to be teachable. To be a great leader, I love this, you must be teachable. This is achieved through active listening, not just hearing, but truly listening. So in the middle of the conflict, in the middle of the brokenness, if you are in a place of power, stop for a moment and say, is there something I can learn from this right now? Right? Maybe if you've experienced a divorce and you've experienced many separations, maybe a really good idea right there in the middle would be to say, what did I learn? What did I learn about myself? What is something that potentially is causing me to continue to fall into these same habits and routines? And I think that for many people, if you are able to say, I'm teachable, this could be a really good thing for you. Another thing, for me, I think about Superman. I think about Superman because Superman had this amazing vision. Superman was able to have X-ray vision and see through walls and clothing. That could be weird. That was Superman. And so Superman, take great care to see what's going on outside your own four walls and show genuine concern for others, the whole person, including their life outside of what has been known to them. So again, have bigger vision. In the middle of conflict and brokenness or whatever, try to stop and just say, what's the bigger thing going on here? What's the vision? What's the deeper issue? When we do that, oftentimes the situation can shift and we can change. Another thing we've learned is to choose good paths. And so we have the picture of Iron Man. Iron Man, heroes are made by the paths they choose, not the powers they are graced with. This was Iron Man. And so again, looking at when we have power, how do we treat others? And so with this perspective, consider the paths you're choosing. Right? When you're in a place of power, the friendships, all of those things, consider those for a moment. Are they leading you down redemptive paths or destructive ones? Are they helping you become the very best leader, very best person you can be, especially when you have power? Or are they the ones kind of goading you to misuse that power? Hey, do this, do that. Take what you can. Are those the kind of people you're with? Because if they are, you're going to continue down destructive paths and you will not bring shalom to the world. The relationships you have will be broken. When we have power, consider the paths we choose. Consider the friendships we have. Another one of my favorite characters, he's a DC comic character, was Batman. Your actions are important. Batman says it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. It's what we do that defines us. And so again, model this, right? When you are in a place of power, like the man during the first century in the middle of the divorce, right? Consider your actions. If you want your environment to care you should share. You should care. If you want the world around you to care, care. If you want your community to care, then you should care for others too. If you want to be in a healthy relationship, you should treat the people you've broken up with well too. Do you get the picture here? Again, let your actions bring about life. That's the bigger picture here. And so Jesus' response over and over again to these people would be through the eyes of Batman, right? Through the mouth of Batman. Again, allow your actions to speak truth. If in the middle of this moment where things aren't going right with an individual, whether it's a breakup or you're leaving a job or whatever, consider your actions on the way out. How are you treating them? Treat them well, because you would want to be treated well too. Another one, I like this. This is Wonder Woman. Be honest. She has the lasso of truth, right? So again, be authentic and honest. Engage in real conversations with people, and you will gain that honesty back too. So in the middle of your dealings, when you're in a place of power, be open, be honest, be authentic. When you do that, you cause other people who at some point may have more power than you. They might have more money. They might have the place of power in the future. Who knows? But if you can be honest and open now, they will be in the future too, because it was modeled for them. Beautiful. And then the last one, Raj Al Ghul, one of the villains of Batman, from the place of power. I thought this was really interesting. The training, he says, is nothing. The will is everything. Be yourself. Be you. Work hard at being your true self, even when given positions of power. Because power has the ability to shift you, doesn't it? It has the ability to change you, and sometimes for the worse. And so as you gain power, if you are in a position of power over someone else, consider be you. Be fully you. Don't let that power change you into something worse, right? Allow that power to be something that makes you a better person, that only brings out the very best in you. That's the beauty of standing in a place of power. Because when we do, we ultimately, it goes like this. When I treat others well, I give power back. And that's the beauty of what Jesus is saying here. Even in the middle of this conversation over divorce, it's really nothing more than learning to respect one another, learning to give power back. Learning to, when you're in a place of power, learning to love the other person enough to treat them as equals. If they did that in the first century, in the middle of divorce, can you imagine the life-changing difference that would be for community? And then if you think of that today, if we learn to treat each other well today in that way, with that same concept ringing in our ears, respect, love one another, our communities, our culture, our world would be very different. Beautiful, right? Yeah, it wasn't just about divorce. It was something far bigger and richer. So I hope you enjoyed that. As always, please consider donating, ethos-church.org/donate. You'll see the link below. And if you want to be part of live discussions twice a month, the first and the third Saturday of every week, we come together online and we discuss some of these concepts in live ways. And so this is super fun. Living rooms all across the nation, we're doing this, and it's been really great. If you want to join, email me, tonywerfel@gmail.com. Join me there, and I'll send you the link. It's been super fun. And as always, please subscribe, hit the bell, and join us whenever you can. Everyone, I love you. Thanks so much for joining in this conversation, taking this often misused, these misused teachings, and really looking at the beauty of them. That's what we're doing. So again, I love you all. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye.